Welcome to The Real Deal On, and today we have a very special guest. It is Ken, Dr. Smiley. Rashawn. Ken is a Renaissance man, humanitarian, and an accomplished serial entrepreneur, otherwise known as a networking ninja. Established his success with the Umbrella Syndicate, Perfect Publishing, and Absolute Entertainment. He is a social proof celebrity event photographer, international keynote speaker, and a published author of 26 books and beyond. He is the co-founder of the nonprofit organization, the Keep Smiling Movement, a radio show host on Voice America Influencer Channel, and has been honored as America's most influential business connector and entrepreneur of the year. Ken's focus is supporting and promoting great leaders, authors, and speakers. He helps businesses grow using amplification strategies in their event and product campaigns. His company gets over 100,000 clicks and engagements per week, making it one of the most active social media pages in the land. He has exceeded 1,000, that's right, 1,000 five-star reviews, making him one of the most recommended businesses worldwide. He loves the arts and sciences and has traveled to over 100 countries. His favorite place to be is with his son, Kenny, aka K3, the light of his life. Ken, who lost his mother to Alzheimer's, desires to live a life of purpose where he leaves a legacy of love for his son to model. Welcome, Smile Ambassador, Guerrilla Marketer, Dr. Smiley.
Doug, that was the best intro I've ever heard, ever.
At least today.
Yeah, well, no, the best one I've ever heard on me. I mean, that was zesty.
Zesty.
It almost makes me want to step up and bring the energy too.
Well, that's kind of the parent, right? We try and set the tone and take it from there. So, welcome and thank you for sharing your most valuable asset, your time, your energy, your wisdom, your experience. And I will just quickly share that we met at an event that I was speaking at, and you were doing your gig, which was super networking, whilst at the same time adding tremendous value through your incredible photography. But please, let's dive into that. Whom is Dr. Smiley and what you're passionate about?
Well, first of all, gratitude, bro. Thank you for having me on your show, because the second most valuable asset is a podcast time.
Right.
So, you only have 50 hours a year, 100 hours a year that you put into podcasting. So you're very careful, especially a person like you that has a large network, of choosing people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm honored. I appreciate it. And most of all, I just want to say to the audience, when you have busy schedules and you're trying to line things, I just want to say, Doug, you are just a joy to speak to. There's no anxiety. I asked for a favor of moving this date, and here we are today. And God has a plan of when things are supposed to happen. And I've always known when the show's over, I go, wow, I couldn't have done that show, a month ago, because I didn't have that energy. Today I have energy, right?
Love it.
And there's a lot to celebrate today.
Yes, do tell. You had shared you have a lot going on, and the fact that you're putting this energy focus here is more than an impressive feat.
Well, I think it's very aligned. And my son is graduating from 5th grade, and I think he's straight A's, gifted and talented. And he just had his 14th book come out. And
wow,
I'm just so excited, because in this particular book, he allowed me to be a co-author. In other words, he said, I want to converse with you and learn about you, and you learn about me. So we asked 100 questions each other. But to answer your question, who is Dr. Smiley? So Dr. Smiley is a creation of the pandemic. I got humbled, financially paralyzed. I mean, it was in the event world, Doug, you can appreciate, if you live off the event world, I had 6 income streams, but they all came from events. So I didn't know my eggs were in one basket called events. And only a pandemic teaches you that. So I had, photography, I had speaking, I had all these things that were related to go to an event and meet great people like you. And my radar is really high, because I've been to probably about 5,000 events, not all at the level of Walter's, but very similar. And I've learned, just like you have learned with your podcast, where is the person that's going to change my life? Who is the person I want to find in this gold mine or this diamond that is going to go beyond? And so you were the person. And I met you at Walter's event. I could see your energy. Yes, you were the MC. And so, yes, you could show up more, but it was also just your energy period. I mean,
Mhm.
you genuine, authentic energy. And so we met about a year ago and we stayed in touch. And that's the power of events. And so Dr. Smiley came out of, hey, I have to recreate myself as a non-event person. I have to create myself as a person that brings hope and smiles, even though there's a pandemic, even though there's adversity, even though there's every reason to be sad. And so that's called shifting, and it's called really getting in line with gratitude. So that's really what
Mhm.
Dr. Smiley is.
So thank you. And I feel the same. Your energy's, very contagious, and the smiles are. It's not just a clever name. It's part of your who you are for sure, and what you bring out of people. What was the when we first met? One of the things you had shared as well was your smile campaign. What was? I know it was born out of what you shared from um, the pandemic and how everyone was feeling, and where did it more from there? Like, take us from the napkin to the execution.
How much time do I have?
As much as you need, brother.
Okay, well, I'll just say there's kind of a 3 minute. I'd like to come back in 3 minutes. So I'll just say from the time that I realized I needed a purpose driven life, that's where I want to start. Okay, how about
Okay.
that?
Yeah.
So 2005, my mom got Alzheimer's. I had been a DJ for, this is scary, but 4 decades. 4 decades.
What DJ like?
Like, it sounds funny to say it, but it was really cool. A wedding DJ.
Okay. Yeah. No. It's
No, I mean, like the wedding singer, the wedding
hmm
DJ. So my point is, if you're the wedding singer, you're the wedding DJ, there is a lot of corniness and cliche. We
hmm
actually
That's part of the
commanded,
charm, part of the fun.
it is, but we actually, we we kind of disrupted it.
Okay.
We became the club DJs that went to the wedding. Like
Nice.
it was world. I mean, the reason I went to 100 countries is to bring music from all around the world. In DC, I got to meet brides that were, she was from Greece and he was from, America or India or Russia. I mean, just all over the place. So we were considered the place to go when you had two cultures to bring together. And
Mm.
it was really beautiful. We were probably twice the expense of any other DJ. There was 350 DJ companies. And I say this to just share, we were at another level. And so it was fun to take 3 months off and travel the year because we were really delivering service, but more importantly, music, man. I mean, if you're gonna play a song that's gonna rock. I mean, play a song that's going to get the crowd going like frenzy.
Right.
That was the baton being handed down. Like, I'm not going to be a DJ anymore. That's not my identity. My identity is caregiver. So I was a caregiver for my mom for 3 years, and just all those daily conversations. The pandemic was 6 months, and it turned into 2 years.
Right.
Well, caregiving was supposed to be 6 months to a year, and it turned into 3 years. So it wasn't what I saw happening. But in the third year, I realized that I wasn't living the life I should be living, or that I could be living, and I should examine it. So I went ahead and did something crazy. I bought $25,000 in camera equipment, no training at all. And I said, God's telling me to capture what inspires me. So I started shooting every day, big events in DC. Unfortunately, DC has a lot of them. And within 6 months, I was in the White House 4 times.
Wow.
And all that said, Doug, is that it catapulted my awareness that there's a lot of need for showing inspiration and hope in the world. So,
Yeah.
and the reason I targeted someone like you is I see you really care about that. You care about showing up to have people level up.
hmm
And you know, there's nothing wrong with investing in leveling up. And you've invested. You've been with Tony Robbins. You've been with all the big people. And when I saw it, heard it, and then I saw how you use it, I said, this is a friend I want to have.
hmm
And you've always taken my call. You've always been cool. So the point is, in my journey, I've learned that attracting people like you is playing as big as I can like you.
Mm.
And so for 7 years, just shooting, not knowing why I'm doing this. And by the way, it was getting to be so long. I was wondering, did I miss her here? I was supposed to use some cameras or something. So on the seventh year, someone handed me this card. His name is Barry Shore. And when he handed me the card, it was like that Blues Brothers moment when you look at the light. I see the light. I see the light, and he flips and all
Yeah.
that stuff. I just said, "This is my mom. This is my mom. She was all about smiles, all about eternal optimism." And so the point is, I was hooked, and I said, "This is what I want to do. I want to find people that cause smiles in the world." Fast forward to the pandemic, I did my dissertation on what is your SPH? What are your smiles per hour? How many smiles are you creating for yourself? How many are you creating for the world? So that is the hopefully 3-minute answer to.
Yeah. Love it. And then, so from there, did you start going back through? So you had 7 years of photos. Did
Yep.
you go back and create a compilation to prime that pump, or did you just start then that campaign where you were doing what you did with me and so many others, where you were actually consciously taking that photo with the card, the book, etc.?
Yeah, so that's a not just a great question, it's a complicated question. So um when I gave you this card, you received it the way I wanted it to be received, which is I wanted to honor you that you're positive. You're a
Hmm.
positive force. I also wanted to honor you that I think you bring lots of smiles to the world and that people should know you. So that's the reason. I don't hand it to say, "Hey, can you hold my card, please?" That's
Right,
not what.
right, of course.
And the reason there's no brand at all on this is I don't want it to be confused that there's something, an agenda. It's just to honor people. And so the first 7 years, um, I guess I'm a slow learner. That's the best answer for you. I did not know what I was supposed to do in a purpose driven life. So I kept shooting. And I guess I was not listening well enough. So I kept going and going and going and shooting. I didn't know in the seventh year this was going to happen. And I wish it would have happened earlier. But here's what's weird about events. I went to, have you ever heard of CEO Space?
Hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie. So he had a beautiful vision of bringing CEOs together in a space where they learn about funding and capital raising and marketing and branding, all these lovely things. And I got to speak on mainly branding and marketing. But if I hadn't gone 13 times, I wouldn't have met the man who handed me this card.
Hmm.
And it's funny, but you know as well as I do, if you go to one Tony Robbins event or you go to one Walter event or you go to one of anything, you are not actually taken seriously as, is this someone I'm supposed to know? It's very hard for that to happen. But if you go a second time, an eyebrow goes up, you're like, I've seen you before. And by the third time, but definitely the seventh, people are like, I got to know you more, man. You're here. You're here. You are really committed. So when I went my 13th time, that was actually my last time, ironically. And Barry hands me the card. And I said, this is why I had to go 13 times. So my point is, are you listening to what you're supposed to be doing with your life? Because I don't know if I was well enough, or I don't know if I was ready for this earlier. But when I got this at 7 years, I said, oh, this is the 7 year journey. This is what I was supposed to see. And so I take it very seriously. This means everything to me. In fact, Barry did something that proved I was right. So if I met you, Doug, and you gave me a card and I said, hey, I'd like to actually represent your card, you'd be like, okay, like why? Or what are you going to do? Well, this is possibly an easier card to represent than, Doug's podcast or whatever. But I said to Barry, I said, I would like to create a movement out of this because I'd asked him 7 questions. I don't remember all 7 of them, but they were like, do you photograph people with a card? Do you publish people with a card? Do you have a social media channel? Is there a website that shows the photos of people that have gone in the movement? And he says, no, 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 no. And all these are no's. I said, I want to create this movement. I want to put everything into it. I want to do all the things I just said no to. I want to make them yeses. So he said, what do you need? I said, I need a lot of cards. And he said, how many? And I said, I don't know. And I didn't know. I didn't know in the moment he asked that. But he said, how about 10,000? I said, no, more than that. And he said, how about 20,000? I said, no, more than that. And he said, 50,000. And I said, more than that. And then he stopped and he said, well, how many? I said, 100,000. Now, here's the thing, Doug. I was saying that to see if he was as serious as I was about this movement.
Hmm.
In 2 seconds, he says, what's your address? He mailed me 100,000 cards. I
Wow.
knew this is a man I could represent because he actually didn't care that it cost $1,000 to make all these cards and
Right.
put them out to me. So I was committed. I would do 100,000 cards and see what type of impact it would have. And can I rewind a little bit on that?
Of course.
Okay. So when I bought those cameras, I went and did events for free. And people were like thinking I was crazy. Like, why would you volunteer to do events, host the events, do the post production, the marketing, all the stuff that goes with it for free? And I said, because I don't know if it's valuable. Do you remember when you started doing emceeing? Do you remember when you started speaking? Like when you started speaking on
The,
stages?
yeah, I mean, well, so long story, but I was a musician and an artist, so I was touring. Peak of my career was when Napster came out, so it's the equivalent of a industry disruptor. We didn't
2008.
have that name, Airbnb or Uber, etc. So I had to reinvent myself, and I started speaking at conferences because and showing bands how to monetize that they didn't need record companies. Because actually, if you had a record deal, you more often than not you did worse than if you just plowed along, and just created a business,
Yeah.
selling merch, selling, all those things. Because once you got signed, they took all of that. So that's where I first started speaking, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I went to a Tony event, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Like this is because Tony's, big performance. So then I realized, all right, I need to do this because now instead of just entertaining people, they're going to leave better off than when they came. So if I can equip them, if I could give them some tools and make it entertaining, yet also, and I was already at that point, I was already a master practitioner of NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and neo Ericksonian hypnosis. And I was using that in my work, and I was coaching bands, and producing is a lot like coaching anyway. So I was doing all of that. And this long winded answer to tell you, then that's when I got the gig with Tony, and I started speaking every day, 3 to 5 times a day, for 4 years, doing trainings around the country. So I guess I do remember kind of the first time going on stage to speak rather than perform. And
Well,
it was,
actually, the perform is potentially the better question than the speak. Let me tell you what I was asking, because what you shared, I want my audience to know why you're special, why you're the real deal, and why you have talent. Because all this was you building who you are to be more valuable to people. And so, what I was asking was, when you first started performing, did you charge?
no.
No,
I
I
mean, the
did.
club may have charged, but we went and played for free. We were happy to just be in front of somebody.
Well, yeah, but that's commitment, is my point.
Right.
And so, when I first DJ'd, I DJ'd some 30 events for free to see if I could even do it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know if I mean, I was addicted to music, so I needed a source to pay for the music, and that was DJing is what I came up with. And so
Mm-hmm.
if I did charge for an event, I would say, hey, this will help me pay for some more music, and that might be $100. And sometimes when I got a little bit more experience, I'd say, hey, I'd puff out my chest and I'd say, hey, I'm 350, and they'd say, all right, we'll get back to you. And I would check the next day, and they didn't get back to me. And I'd call them and say, hey, are you still interested in DJ? Yeah, we think we found one, or we did find one. We found one. And I said, did you sign a contract yet? And they said, no. I said, I'll do it for free. And they go, why would you do it for free? Because I don't want to not DJ. I want to DJ every day. And so what happens is, as you DJ every day, you get better, but more people tip you and more people see your talent and they refer you and they bring you back. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the essence of my question to you about speaking and performing, is that you didn't come to Tony Robbins without a tremendous amount of experience, commitment, and trial and error of actually being effective is the point.
Right.
And so with my photography, that was new. I'd never done it professionally. So I did 333 events for free my first year. And I would not charge for one simple reason. I just need to know, does it make a difference? Am I an outlier? And that's what got me in the White House 4 times, is that it wasn't the photography, it was that people were seeing the photos. Like, you remember that when you were reading the bio was about 30 to 100,000 people. That's how many people are coming to my page to see what the heck is this guy doing.
And when you did the White House, were those free, or were those at that point you were being paid?
No, I didn't get paid for my first year. I mean, those were included in my first year. So my first year I didn't get paid. And then I learned, Doug, that people like Walter, it's a privilege to be part of the team. It's a privilege to be at the event. It's a privilege to serve in that team,
Mm-hmm.
because you know as well as I do, Tony has a lot of people that volunteer, a
Mm-hmm.
lot, and those people that volunteer are getting a lot of value.
Oh yeah.
They're meeting similar people that you can't meet unless you're there. They're having amazing conversations and they're getting amazing ideas, but they're getting also all the content that everyone's paying for.
Yeah, and they're serving. I mean, the whole purpose of that
Yes.
is the people who crew those events more often than not are there genuinely to serve. They're not looking what they could get, it's what can they give.
Yeah. And so with Walter, I don't like the challenge to be, how do we figure out money? I just say, tell you what, Walter, if I'd like to come out to your event and show you what I can do. That's it. Let me show you what I can do. I'm confident enough that the Baskin Robbins approach is the best way to go. Like, if you think this ice cream's, you don't know if you want to buy it, try it. Here's the ice cream right
Hmm.
here. Try it. 90% of the time, you're like, I do want 2 scoops, and they just made 800% profit
Right. Yeah.
on some milk. So it's a good approach when you have something that's kind of different and really unique and also very valuable. So I don't know if that was the answer to
No,
that question.
well, there was no right or wrong answer. This is a fluid conversation.
And
So
can you imagine if you said that was wrong? We are done.
yeah, I'm sorry, conversation over. Goodbye. Uh, you're canceled. So the the point of, I think, when you talked about earlier, purpose-driven life, and doing what we do with a purpose, the purpose of our podcast, of our services, our products, all of those, is to add value. And of course, there's an exchange. There's always some form of an exchange. And when we're not living transactionally and we're doing it more from a holistic experience where the give and take is more of a dance, that when like I don't, hey, I gave to you, you give to me, eh? Like, it's not like that universally. When we add that value and then we keep our hands open, then the opportunity comes from other directions energetically. And there's an element of authentic truth to what you shared as well, as far as doing it for free. I hearken back to my early days when I got into music. I worked as an intern and I worked for free. I knocked on the door and said, hey, I'll work here for nothing till you see value, and then you'll start paying me. So I started out as an intern and worked my way up to staff producer, where we were
That's
winning Grammys with Celine Dion and J Lo and all that great stuff. But it starts with, to your point earlier, when you wanted to find out how committed someone was, when you're about to, how Barry was, to find out if you're willing to invest your most valuable asset. It it does work both ways. So when we are willing to put ourselves out there for nothing, now, of course, we've got to have a goal, right? We want to know where that is. So if we're talking from a business perspective, at some point, there is going to be some receipt. So do you remember the first time you've been doing your photography, doing your DJs, do all this for nothing, where then you said you put a price on it? And or like, from a referral, you're doing a gig and someone says, hey, come do my party, come be a DJ, or come be a photographer at my event. What do you charge?
right. So I misspoke. So I said the word free. I do want to correct that. So
Okay.
there's free when no one wants to pay for your time and you're not proven. And then there's free in kind, and in kind's
Hmm.
way free. So Walter did not pay me nothing. He gave me 2 very expensive tickets to be at his event. They were
Hmm.
very expensive tickets. And that was a gift. He gave me a gift. I gave him a gift. And when I did the 333 events for free, I do want to erase that, because I don't want the audience to hear free as a solution or as a marketing tool or as a branding tool. It's not that. Free is the mindset that you're willing to, not necessarily that that's a transaction. And it's not even a transaction. It's just a conversation. So the conversation usually went like this, Doug. Hey, you have this big gal in DC. You have 50 senators that are going to be there. You've seen what we do. We'd like to support your event as a media sponsor. And they said, okay, how much are you going to pay? I said, well, we're not going to pay anything. We're going to give you the value. Our photography is $2,000. The promotion is $3,000, blah, blah, blah. And we usually came up between $5,000 and $15,000 in value. And then I would say, do you have a sponsorship level? And they'd usually say yes. And they'd say, so we don't have to pay anything for photography? And I go, nope. So they pocketed $1,000 or $2,000 they wouldn't normally have to pay. And they gave us a Mercedes level or whatever sponsorship level. So we were doing, I'm pretty good at accounting with trade. And my trade in kind was roughly 300,000 the first year. It went
Okay.
up to, it went up to 500,000. And it's just, if you can get in tickets for free and you're the media sponsor and you're getting out there, obviously the next question is, hey, can you do this for us? Or what other services do you have? Or I love that you're a community builder. Tell me more about you. It's just those things come up, obviously.
Right. Yeah, great distinction. And the idea of when I shared earlier the interning or things like that, those are usually a shorter term
Yes.
experience where it's like, oh, okay, I see. This is almost a trial to see if we can tolerate each other and enjoy each other's company and go, oh, okay, I see. It's testing that level of commitment.
Well, there's another part to it though. In interning, you're getting IP. You're getting IP for free. You're not paying for it. So you're not paying $30,000-$50,000 for someone that has $1 million of education to say,
Right.
I'll let you work for free. And by the way, I want to reference back. You said your intern at the radio show. That's what Les Brown did. Les Brown got the job because he just hounded the person. And then Napoleon Hill got the job from Dale Carnegie because Dale Carnegie said, will you work for free for the next 20 years to meet all these people? And in less than a minute, he says, I will. But he got access to everything Dale Carnegie had done, and he was the second richest man in the world. So not a dumb move, because everyone else that he had asked, which was apparently hundreds of people, said, "Can you ask me like in 3 months or whatever?" And Dale Carnegie was like, "You're not the right person."
Yep. There's a book I think it was Business Done by the Bible or something like that. I forget the exact title of the book that I'm reading with my ears. And he had talked about a job interview that he had gone on, and he was given two choices. He said, you can either take $1,000 a week or $1,000 a month plus a 10% commission, or full commission 40%.
Wow.
Which do you want? And he's like, well, I had no money. And I was thinking, what do I do? And then he goes, I was about to take the $1,000. But then I realized, well, if I don't deliver, if my thought process is if I do it, if I'm being driven by the $1,000 and I don't deliver, I'm going to lose the gig anyway. So I might as well just take the 40% and, figure it out. It's because I'm probably going to have the same amount of time to figure it out anyway. So he took that, and he thought that it was going to be, like it was, let's say 20 people, like, 20 people, like all of them were going to take the 40%. And it was to go like to the next level of training. And it was a handful. It was like two or three of them that went into this other room after he had just answered the question, I'll do the 40. He thought that they had sent all the other people who had left were the people who
Got the gig.
got the gig, or yeah. And then so he gets in the room and he's like, okay, they're all gone. Your training is done. You're hired, because that's how we know you're committed. That if you're willing to work for basically yourself, that you're willing to put the work in, then that's your training.
Yep.
And it was just an interest that just reminded me of that philosophy, that level of commitment, and are you willing to do whatever it takes? And that's sort of the secret to success in any area, is the consistency and just doing it. Like Nike gave it away.
Right.
Just
Well, I
do it.
remember since Walter's our connector, and I'm the reason I'm saying his name a couple of times is, one, I have a lot of admiration for him, but I wouldn't be on the show if it wasn't for him. He's the one who guided me to an event that I met you. So it's very interesting.
Where did you meet Walter?
I met Walter at Rock Your Life, Craig
Oh, with
Duswalt.
Craig Duswalt. Yep.
Yeah, and he was front row, and he was just answering questions after questions. And of course, you wouldn't understand what I'm about to say, so this is going to be like Greek when I speak this to you. But Walter has a phenomenal haircut, and I commented on how great his haircut was. So he took a call with me, and what happened was I gave him access to this project called Dose of Hope, and I said, hey, you bring hope to the world. I can tell you really care about abundance, and I just have watched your body language. Everything is your tonality of your voice. It's all truth, and I want to give you this thing. And the next thing he says, he stopped in the call, and he kind of did this little shake. He goes, you're cool, like that. And I said, okay, thank you. And he says, I'm giving you 2 VIP tickets to my 100 Millionaire Summit. And it's all conversation. Like, how committed are you to the conversation of now? And by the way, the dumbest thing I could have said was, yeah, I can't make that. So I made sure there's no way I was going to miss that event. And here we are today.
Love it. And I know I'm not the only person that you met at that event. And if I recall correctly, you actually, I saw you doing tons of the smiling pictures, and I mean, you really like had an impact and left a lot of people smiling.
Yeah, well, he's attracting abundance, and abundance is actually very, there's almost an equal sign to smiles. So the more
Hmm.
abundant you are, the more you're smiling. Because abundance is not about how rich you are. It's
Right.
about how much you have. How and what you have is everything. If you have everything, you are smiling. And he
One might
attracted
argue smiles come before abundance.
well, I'll tell you what, I think it's so circular, you could go either way.
Right.
So smiles cause abundance, abundance cause smiles. So good on you on that one, though, by the way. And he attracted Vinny Chopra, and it's
Hmm.
smiles,
Miles Chopra. Yeah.
and he's the real deal. Holy heck, like a billionaire who talks to people because they're all important,
Hmm.
and because he could relate that he started there, and he just wants to tell them it's possible. It's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, and that's where the idea of your network is your net worth, and it's not just about finances. It's unfortunately a lot of people do confuse the two because, to your point, abundance is a mindset. It's not the number of zeros in your bank account. It's part of it, but how many people do we know that have all the money in the world but are miserable?
Yeah, and I don't know if this equation. I wrote a book called Diagrams, and it was a diagram book of just things that explain things super quick. And I'll only do two of the diagrams. One's related exactly to this, and this is the other one's just to show you that, hey. And by the way, any book I mention or show, I'm happy to give to any of your audience. But I came up with this. It's very simple. I'll just draw two circles very quickly. And when I put these two circles, I'm going to put a color on the outside. I'm going to put a color on the inside. All right. So in these two circles, when the color's on the outside, you're in abundance because that's what you need and that's what you have. This is what you need and that's what you have. And this is called too much spending or too much debt or going beyond what you're supposed to have. So this is scarcity and this is
Mhm.
abundance. And I share that with you just to say, it's you mentioned about zeros. It's how many zeros you have after that equation.
Right.
So if you make 1 million and you're spending two, I got news for you. You're just as scarce as the person who's making $10 and needs 20
Yeah.
because
Well,
it's
and
proportional.
yeah, totally. And I think oftentimes we forget that when someone who's broke pays you $100 versus someone who's a millionaire pays you 10,000, the person who's broke who gave you $100 gave a lot more.
Yep.
And it's it's all relative, especially in my family. But so I think it's really important that you and I, as we continue, and I'm speaking when I say you and I, everyone who's, within earshot of this conversation, that we recognize that we're all equal in that we're humans, spiritual beings. We're here for a purpose, living on purpose, with purpose, and that sometimes it's possible what we're measuring may not be the most effective for growing a relationship and adding value. And when we have that shift, we're able to really kind of do what you did to bring back full circle in some respect, how you shared you did the in kind, where you were like, okay, this is not just about like which is going to be more valuable to me, access or my fee.
So that diagram has got another component to it, which I I'm doing for the very first time now. Okay, is abundance is very associated with gratitude too, as you
Hmm.
know. So when you're looking at all your blessings, you typically attract more abundance, and so it actually becomes that, and
Hmm.
that's kind of a cool component too. I I think that the other diagram, the reason I wanted to bring it up is because it's complementary to our conversation about one who is Dr. Smiley, and then secondly, how do you either attract abundance, create abundance, or feel abundant? And so This is from, I wish his name is so ridiculously long. He's a monk and he's in India, but he gave this beautiful diagram, and it was, do you have a problem diagram? And so it was, why worry? So do you have a problem? Yes, I have a problem. Can you solve it? No. Then why worry? Do you have a problem? No. Can you solve it? No. I mean, yes, I have a problem. No, I can't solve it. So why worry? Do you have a problem? And the answer is no. Then why worry? Like, you don't have to worry if you have no problem. So the point is, too many people worry in life, and it creates cortisol. It pushes away the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and it's actually saying, I do not want abundance. I do not want it, because worry is scarcity, and it's a
Oh,
very dumb place to be. And I saw this beautiful video on Instagram yesterday. I wish I could play it right now, but I'll send you the link. It was a young lady. She's probably 25, maybe 30. She interviewed a 100-year-old man. It's, you know how Instagrams are really super short videos. So this
yeah.
was all in 1 minute, and it just had me crying. And the man just said, the past is history. Tomorrow's a mystery, and today's a gift. And I know we've all heard the cliche and all this stuff, but how he got about the gift is, he said, so enjoy it. Enjoy your day, and do whatever you want that makes you happy. And when he did, he started crying, and the girl got caught up in it. And I'm like, holy heck, this is the most powerful version of this cliche saying.
Yep. Well, and yeah, that's the power of presence, right? Being present in the moment. Like right now, is there anything you can do to solve the problem? Nope. Okay. Well, then why,
Right.
why focus on it? And I taught that a lot in sort of, everything that I do. The foundation is, our emotions, like our emotional fuel. Everything that we do through the filter of the emotion that we're experiencing. And we do very different things. We make very different decisions when we are grateful versus when we may be angry or fearful or full of anxiety or depressed. So I kind of use the model of like the universe, God. What if God is so benevolent, benevolent, the word I'm looking for,
Benevolent.
benevolent.
And I'm here for you, Doug.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I was saying a little tongue tied. That it's the ask and ye shall receive, the seek and ye shall find is non-judgmental. So when we're angry, well, what do we get? More things to be angry about, right?
Exactly.
And God's like, oh, well, here's more, right? So when we're grateful, the law of the universe shows like, oh, you're filling yourself with gratitude. You want more. And so here's more things to be grateful for. So the old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, they all point to how we are living our life, what we are present to. Are we present to the fear? Because are there things to be angry about, fearful about, to be upset about in the world today? Yeah, now more than ever, we're being inundated and bombarded with things to be upset about because no one buys the newspaper, sunny degrees, 70 degrees and sunny. We buy the newspaper, we tune in, holy crap, world is going to end, right? So it's filling us with all this negative energy, which is why it's so important that we invest ourselves, our energy in smiling, in being in an environment that is what you've been creating and continue to create and have created, is that abundance mentality, the psychology of success and support. And that's what, Walter's obviously created, Craig. I mean, obviously there's tons of great people out there. And again, if someone's listening to this right now, that is more than likely the space that they're in, where they're surrounding themselves, they're filling themselves with positivity, positivity presence, like being
Mhm.
present right now with what you could be grateful for, what you could be excited about, what you're passionate about. Um, and that's if that was our purpose, imagine that if everyone, the purpose they were living was that.
It's a choice.
Yeah,
I have this shirt I bought off Amazon. It has gosh, I'm doing diagram day, by the way.
there you
I,
go. Okay.
I don't normally do this, but what I love about you is that when I called you and I said I have a problem with the time slot, you were like, okay, well, when do you want to do it then? And that is gratitude in the highest level. And I say that from the standpoint that, are you upset with the the person who's late for your meeting, your Zoom meeting. Because if you're mad at that person, you just annihilated all the energy that could happen from that. And so I love it when my clients are late. I love it when anyone's late, because then I can show grace. And when I get to show grace, that really propels the possibility of what we're going to do together. Because grace really rewarded heavily. I did it a little off, but I'm going to just show you. So this is a shirt I bought.
Okay.
And this, if you look at it this way, it's a smile. And if you look at it this way, it's a frown.
Yeah.
So it says choose underneath. And when I did this experiment, when I first got the Keep Smiling card, so you've heard of Go Giver, right? By Bob Berg.
Yeah, Bob Berg. Yeah.
So I did 1 year of Go Giving. So Go Giving means you don't take. And also you don't even, I mean, my test was a little harder, at a little higher level, because I want to experiment. I'm a human behavior. So I want to know, if I never mention my name, I never mention what I do, I never mention anything, will people care? And the answer was I didn't. I would talk to however many people at an event, and I would only find out about them. I'd find out how I could serve them, help them, and I would do it magically. Then they cared. They're like, I need to know you more. I need to, and they're like, I help you. So the Go Giving I did for 1 whole year, never mention my name at one event. I go to, somewhere around 100 events a year, and it was amazing. I would just pick 3 people to serve them, and the Go Giving was just massive coming back. So that's that. But I want to say that when I got this, I did an experiment. You're allowed to get angry, because if you don't get angry, first of all, it's therapeutic to get angry. But how are you utilizing your anger? Are you utilizing it to vent and be done with it, communicate, be clear, learn from it, and then move into gratitude? And that's what my goal was if I'm upset about something, it can only last like a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because it just needs to be done. Go to gratitude. What are you happy about? What can you smile about? And in the dissertation I did, it was interesting, as simple as it is, that when you smile here and you are not happy here, when you smile here, you actually fool your brain, and your brain says, there's something going on down here that seems to be really happy. So why am I mad up here? And so it actually converts and kicks the chemicals that would happen if this is happening. And then you actually have it in it's all working together. It's symmetry, synergy, collaborating together. And so, and then if you're happy, obviously that's very hard to not smile. But the point is, you can program a shift. So my son is one of the most important things to me. My health is one of the most important things to me. The fact that I have shelter is really important to me. And so I can go to those 3 things very quickly. And no matter how upset I am, I can actually move into happiness and gratitude, like almost, unconscious competence. That's where I am right now. I don't have to even think about it. I'm very, like, people say, you're always happy. I go, no. I am able to shift very quickly now. Very quickly.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's emotional intelligence, right? It's being able to recognize and then, more importantly, shift. So yeah, it is important and necessary. Remember, there's a scene in Central Intelligence. Did you see that with The Rock and right, Kevin Hart? And there's this one scene when early in the movie when they're in the school, and he walks by the bathroom and he's kind of re-traumatizes himself, and then Kevin Hart's like, hey, I what happened? That was messed up. Do you want to talk about it? And he's like, no. What I find is best is what I do is I squish it down and I bottle it up, right. And as we know, that is a recipe for explosion. That's the when you keep that all bottled up, we explode. So it is important that we do let it go and then quickly shift. So we don't have bad days. We'll have a bad moment. We'll have that a thing happens. It interrupts our equilibrium, and then we have to, it's like riding a bike, you hit the bump or whatever, like, oh, right? And the difference is we know, other than consciously, I better straighten out, otherwise I'm going to crash. But emotionally, oftentimes people stay wobbling, and then they crash into something, and then they'll blame the rock for whatever just happened, instead of going, but I had the opportunity to choose to slow it down, get myself represented, to balance and move forward. And I don't recall the study, but I know there's several. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you have this info. This data is some variety of different experiments where they took people who were clinically depressed, and their therapy was X amount of time smiling in the mirror and, doing that. And there was, a huge portion of them, percentage, like something like 80, 90%, were able to extricate themselves from the drugs that they were requiring or prescribed, and were able to transform their emotional life simply by executing the smile practice of. And I do recall the time. Was it 30 seconds, 3 minutes, something periodically throughout the day?
I know this study. I don't know that the
The
specifics.
specifics, but yeah, it's
But
a scientifically proven fact.
oh, totally. And I have a book called The Science of Smiles, which goes deep in all these studies I've seen. And there's something like 21 attributes, and you're not allowed to say, Ken, go ahead and give me the 21 attributes, but you can say, give me some of them, and I will do it. So if you smile a lot, you are more attractive. If you smile a lot, you typically have job security because people want a positive force in the
Mhm.
world. If you smile a lot, your relationships are easier and healthier. Um, when you smile a lot, you're kicking in your wellness and you're actually pushing out your unwellness. So, and all that said, that just brings more abundance to you. All those things are bringing more abundance to you. You have an abundance of love, an abundance of job security is low stress, an abundance of people thinking you look great, so you do. I mean, but you said something earlier about the bad day or the putting it out there, and
Mhm.
this thing about shifting, it's interesting. If you don't shift, what happens is you extend, like you said. So this is basics, but it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. We have to be
Right.
right. So if you say I'm going to have a bad day, we are programmed to prove it. And so if you can shift out of it and say, no, 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 I'm not. I'm going to have a great day. You actually cause that because you have to be right. And that's the beauty of it. And just an aside is that there's a lot of people that are living this journey thinking that it's a certain way, that this is the program or this is the way it's supposed to be. And it's not. It's any way you want it to be. You have one life. You can enjoy the heck out of it. There are people that say, adios, I'm going to the jungle and I'm going to live there. I'm going to go on an island. And they have the best life. And I will say that's a better life than someone that says, I'm going to do the 40 hours a week to get the car, to get all this stuff. And I'm miserable. It's just not, that's not the way it's sold. But you sold yourself that that's the way it is. And I think that's a societal problem, bigger in the United States than any other country, is that we are sold the materialistic debt that is just not really healthy. So
Yeah.
the
Well, and I think, yeah, I mean, that's a whole, I mean,
yeah, that's a whole thing. But I
yeah, we
want to
could,
say that, but that's an attribute to these choices we're making.
right. Well, yeah, how you do anything's how you do everything.
Yes.
So when we start going down that path of, I remember person who at one point was a part of the family, uh, goes one day, a thing happened, whatever, I don't even remember what it was. And then she goes, good Lord, God, what new hell do you have for me today? And I was like, oh no, wow, ask and ye shall receive. Anything that happens right now, you could create that new hell from. It's
Yes.
a choice, right? A thing happens, and we hear so many parables and stories of, the thing happens, and they go, "Oh, that must be bad," and the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know, we'll see," right? And rather than put this non-resourceful meaning to whatever just happened, if we could put, even not necessarily assign it a meaning in that moment, and then go, well, let's, this is a gift. How could this be a gift? What is the blessing here? What's the silver lining? Uh, because I'm sure everyone could find a thing that at the time they thought was miserable, and they look back and go, "Ooh, that was the biggest gift I could have received."
Right.
And they could have curtailed a lot of suffering by not thinking it was as bad as it was at the time, because it ended up being the gift. And imagine if we didn't wait and we were able to ask that question, that new perception, hey, what is great about this? And my little hack, which I got from Tony, is if you ever ask yourself that question, like, well, what's great about this? What could I be, let me get some gratitude in here. What could I be grateful for? And then we're in that non-resourceful state. Nothing, right? I'm already angry. I'm irritated. I'm frustrated. I'm pissed. Then you go, well, if I wanted to feel grateful, what could I feel grateful for? And then at least like, well, I mean, I suppose if I wanted to feel grateful, I could be grateful that I have a roof over my head, or I could be grateful. And then that starts easing our way. And that's sort of a little hack, like when we're talking to children.
Mhm.
If they're shorter than we are, what do we want to do? Get down to their level, get eye to eye, and connect on that level. So sometimes our state may be so far from where we want to be, we need to find a way to get a little bit closer to where we're at to lead us back to where we would like to be. Um, and I don't know if there's a diagram for that, but
I'm sure there is. And by the way, I'll take the diagram book, and I want to do diagrams with you because so the idea of the diagram book was, hey, if you don't have time to read a book, I've got principles I've learned at masterminds, all these things. I just want to put it together. The Aikagi, like your why and your how and what the world needs and what you can give and all that stuff to put together. These are beautiful diagrams. But I wanted to share that I was tested within, it was March 20th of 2020, the beginning of the pandemic. Everyone was tested that day. I mean, it was a different 9/11. It was the 9/11 of, hey, you're gonna have a new life and you're either gonna enjoy it or you're not, but you're gonna choose. And I had 300 and something events on the books. And
oh, you muted.
yeah,
Thank you.
because it was some noise. So I wanted to say that then the first day of the pandemic, we lost 360 events, and we had maybe 2 left that didn't cancel. And my wife said, "Hey, we just lost every event almost." And I said, "Yeah, I know," because I heard the phones, I saw the text, I saw the thing, and that when you lose that many, it's pretty much a 98, 99% impact on your finances.
Mm-hmm.
And because I put so much money in the Key Smiley movement, I had been kind of an all in guy. And so I did not see this coming at all. And she says, "So what are we going to do?" And I said, "I don't know." And I said it as calm as I'm talking to you right now. And she says, "You don't seem worried." And I said, "I'm not." And I'm telling you the truth. I said, "I'm not." And I did not know at all what I was going to do. So the next question is, why aren't you worried? And I said, "I don't know." But I realized later why I wasn't worried, because I believed this was something I was supposed to go through. This is a pathway to all kinds of amazing opportunity. I never would have become Dr. Smiley. My son never would have become an author. I never would have gotten my dissertation. I mean, all these things because I asked the question, what am I going to create? And it's a different version of what is great about this. But I
Right.
said, what create? And so I pulled my son aside and I said, "Hey, Kenny, what's the capital of the United States?" I don't know why that was the first question I asked him. But I said, "What is the capital of the United States?" And he goes, "I don't know." We live in Maryland, 30 minutes from Washington, D.C. So that was embarrassing because the public school system, I will not say which one it is, but it's rated number 2 in the country. And the reason I'm not going to say what it is I don't want people to think they don't teach that. I can't believe he didn't know it. But at 3rd grade, he did not know the capital of the state. So I said, "Kenny, Daddy used to be a physics and chemistry teacher, and I'm going to be teaching a lot of stuff about geography, a lot of stuff about all these things." And the fun story I like to say on stage, that I'll just give you this little snippet of it, is on basically the 3rd, 4th, or 5th day when I was teaching the periodic table, which you teach high school kids. Okay. I was teaching a 3rd grader because I didn't know what else to teach him. And he says, "Daddy, this seems like it's really hard." And it was one of the biggest lies I've ever told in my life to my son. I said, "Kenny, what do you think? The other daddies aren't teaching this? This is what daddies are teaching their kids right now during the pandemic." So he learned physics and chemistry, and he was like a rocket after he got back to school because he said, "Daddy, I'm this math is too simple." Because I was teaching him anything I could with formulas. I just found out from his math teacher. He says he's at like 11th grade math level right
Wow.
now, and he likes to go to YouTube and study calculus and weird things that you and I just do not need to do. And by the way, he asked me about calculus. I go to YouTube because I can't remember it. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
God bless them. I'm not sure the teachers teaching it remember it. They think they're here's a textbook. Here, go do the lesson here.
You got it.
Wow. And so you were up in Maryland for that
I live in
whole,
I live in Maryland for the whole.
and you were there during the pandemic and all of that. So
Yeah, but dude, I
you
I did not I did not do what most people do. I looked for resources for income. I looked at how I could rent my car. I looked at Uber, Lyft. I mean, I did it all, bro. And I funny, I had an old Tesla that only did 160 miles. So you can imagine how long I lasted in Lyft every morning.
Wow.
I was done in an hour and a half. And these people were like, God, man, I'm in a Tesla. And I was like, yeah, I wish I had a newer one.
You spent a lot of time at the supercharger.
I didn't. I actually just would go home. I just needed 2 hours just to get 30, $50 for the day.
Okay.
Just I made sure some income was coming in.
All right. Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting. So many people during that time, I know for me, I was, when it first hit, I was in conversation with an organization to be one of the, a presenter running MMIs, Millionaire Mind Intensives. And I was
Mhm.
at the last live event that Success Resources ever did with the president discussing coming on to be one of the leaders for, and have my own events. And that was the week that they were like, oh, everything's done. And I had the following week for another company to be doing, speaking and training, and it was going to be travel and all live stuff. They fortunately, like, okay, well, we're just going to shift it to virtual. And because I already had virtual experience, I was able to just slide right in, and I, could use the computers and all of that. So I was able to adjust. But a lot of the old guard, they're like, I'm not Zoom, like
Yeah.
Mike's like, I no, I do, I can't. Just they had a tough time. And interestingly enough, we notice these patterns, things that sort of just keep occurring, and whether we attract it directly or indirectly. This happened in my music career. I peak of my career is when Napster came out, and that was when music it was being digitized. Everything became, it was like going onto computers, so Pro Tools and all of that. I was cutting tape when I started. I was
Mhm.
there for the shift to digital recording and digital distribution. There were a lot of the old guard who did not get on board with the computers and all of that. So I think one of the lessons here that maybe also was other than conscious, and now we're bringing conscious, is flexibility
Mhm.
and the importance of flexibility, and that the when you had shared earlier about, okay, could we, change the time, because, yeah, flexibility, like it's a, yeah, you just gave me a square peg. I'm not going to try and bang it into the round hole. Like, oh, okay, well, let's find the other spot and we'll make it work. And the challenge I think that oftentimes people get stuck in is the way they think the world should be, as
Mhm.
opposed to the way it is.
Which is called attachment.
Yeah.
Attachment's dangerous because when you say, I mean, there are countries that teach you that if someone's late for you, they're disrespecting you, that they have no regard for you. Now, there is potentially some truth in that. I'm not saying there's not zero, but if you decide that that's going to be your definition, you can't have relationships with anyone who's not really responsible with time. And that could be a person that could change your life. That could be a person that has a solution for you that no one else has. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, and the opportunities that are lost because of that mindset are like just beyond, because once that happens, and then if it puts us in a non-resourceful state, we get angry, someone's running late, and then we're like, ah, they don't like me, they're disrespecting me. How could they dishonor me? They show up and maybe something happened. Maybe they got into a car accident. Maybe there was, who knows? Like there's things happen in life. And if then they show up and now we're angry at them, we've
Right.
now just potentially, we may still have that meeting, we may still have that conversation, but it is potentially tainted, poisoned, and it is not as productive or as effective. At which point, that person may go, oh, I don't want to do business with them. I don't want to, get to know them any further. I don't want to open up my resources for them. They're like, something was not right, and they may not know what was not right about it.
Right.
They just go, there was that something didn't click, and it could just be because we didn't manage ourselves and gave a meaning to what happened that was not the case.
And sometimes they're oblivious and you just have to find out. My mom gave me two quotes I live by. Connie's given me a couple as well, but quote number one is look for the good in people and you always find it. And
Hmm.
I had done the opposite. I would look for the bad in people. I'd find it and I'd complain
Where'd you
about it.
grow up?
I was an army brat, so a lot of Germany, a lot of India, a little bit of Hong Kong.
Okay.
But I would find the bad and I complained. And she says that's not really going to be ever healthy for a relationship. And at
No.
like, I don't know, second or third grade, she says, try this out. Look for the good in people and see what happens. And so I did. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. What a shift. And then the other thing she said, which took a lot longer for it to really land for me, but she says, everyone's doing the best they can because they may not be doing the best they could if they knew more or, that they were going to be later. But right
Hmm.
now, they're doing the best they can.
Yep.
And when you do that, when someone's late, for instance, this example we're using, that was the best they could do. And when I taught in school, the principal said something that was very close to that. He says, when you have this kid that's in your class and they don't have the answers and they appear lazy and they're this and that, the parents that gave you that child, that's the best they could give you. That's the best they could give you. So work with it
Hmm.
and create something out of it. And it's really an interesting way to shift things. And by the way, if you're the only person that accepts somebody that everyone else is not accepting because of their attachment rule, you may get the gift of them saying, you're the only one. What can I do for you? Like
Yep.
it opens up all kinds of beautiful things.
I don't remember the study specifically, and maybe it's parable or some sort of story, but maybe you've heard this and maybe you have more information on it. There was a study done by whom I don't recall that they took first graders, and the teacher was like, "Oh, these kids, these are bad kids. They're problem kids, and
Yep.
basically they're failing, doing and they treat and basically the teacher treated them like that. They swapped out the teacher, and the new teacher they brought in, they said about the problem children. Okay, just to let you know, these kids right here, they're like super geniuses. They may seem to act out, but it's because they're bored. So what you really got to do is challenge them and hold them to a high standard and be sure that you're able to give them the attention that they need because if it's they're beyond their thought process is beyond what the rest of the class is. And the teacher did that. And next thing you know, their behavior became idyllic. Their grades skyrocketed and they lived into the expectation of that teacher being thinking of them as geniuses and needing that their misbehavior wasn't a byproduct of bad behavior. It was because they were bored and too smart for the class. And I applied that. My wife and I, we ran, when I left working with Tony Robbins, we ran a drug and alcohol treatment center for about 8 years. And that's the way we approached all of the clients that came in. What's great about this person? This person is brilliant just because, they are not their behaviors. They are, their outcome, their situation is a result of their behaviors, but that's not who they are, and celebrated their genius, celebrated their creativity, and I would do this exercise. I would, and this is kind of going into somewhat of a tangent, but ties into some of what we're sharing, especially around this with the kids and how they identified. I would say to the all the clients in there who are in inpatient treatment. So they've been through detox and now they're doing 30, 60, 90 days of treatment with us, living with us. So we're seeing them every day. We got to build a relationship with them and help them create a life worth being sober for. So I'd ask them, and this flew in the face of AA. I'd ask them, what does an addict do? And we'd hear things people would say, lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, use drugs, et cetera, et cetera. So they'd say all these things and I say, okay, so again, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on AA, but let me ask you something. Um, what what would happen if I walked into to meet you and I said, "Hi, my name is Doug. I lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, use drugs, abuse people, and mean, whatever, all these things that you just shared. You want to hang out?" And they'd be like, "No." I said, "So if that's the way you identify." If addict, when you say I'm an addict, And then you attach to that what an addict does is blah, blah, blah. Well, now you're going to the strongest need in the human psychology is to be congruent with the way it identifies itself. So now what you've done is you've actually set yourself up for a life of pain because now you're going to be incongruent if you're not lying, cheating, stealing, doing drugs, all of those things, because that's who you are. Then I would say, I would go flip it and I would say, so let me ask you this: a successful person, what are some attributes of a successful person? And like, oh, they're willing to do whatever it takes. They're creative. They don't take no for an answer. If they get an obstacle, they move their way around it. All this. And I'm like, okay, so let me ask you something. When you were active and looking for your drug of choice, were you willing to do whatever it took to get your drug of choice? Yeah. If you got no, would you give up? No. Would you find another way? Yes. Were you creative? Yes. Did you do things that you didn't think you would have done before that you were scary and maybe like, didn't think it'd be possible to do? You would never do, but you ended up doing it to get your drug of choice. Yeah. I was like, give yourselves a hand. You are successful. And like their brain would be like, what? Like, and it helps like break down to what we were sharing earlier about how we show up and the meaning we give it, the energy we fuel ourselves with, and to be able to adjust when and be flexible when we get that resistance. So the pressure cooker of the craziness of 2020 gave you an opportunity to get flexible, and you knew in your heart your identity was I like the reason why you weren't upset or freaking out. It's because you knew you'd figure it out. Like, yeah, I'll figure it out. I figured out stuff before. I know that if I fuel myself with anger, frustration, fear, I'm not going to be productive and get what I need done. I'm not going to be a great model for my son. What do I want to teach my children? How to navigate these challenges, right? All we can do is light the path. We can't clear it, just light it. And how do we do it is by living it. And you're a phenomenal example of that.
Well, thank you. I wanted to bring up that the studies about the kids you were bringing up.
Mm-hmm.
The Harlem Rooks, they were a team.
Mm.
And if you see
Yeah.
stories about chess, the remarkable ones are that they go in these inner-city schools that they have really zero advantages. I mean, there's just no way you can add it up. But the teacher teaches them to be resourceful, to be disciplined, to think outside the box. And all this
Yep.
said, the Rooks became the national champion. Well, I should say the state champions of New York, and they were competing with just teams that were off the charts. I mean, just the best. They'd been taught since they were 2. And so that's one thing. And the other thing is there's a beautiful book, since you like to read books with your ear. Adam Grant, Hidden Potential.
Mm-hmm. I have that. Brilliant.
Love it. Love that
Yep.
book. And he talks about the Harlem Rooks, but he also talks about the difference between where a kid will be financially way up or way down. He attributes most of it to the kindergarten teacher's experience. So an extremely experienced kindergarten teacher teaches those same traits: discipline, teaches character. It's mainly character things.
Yep.
And so what happens is the kids can actually underperform or not perform that well in math and English, but they're going to make significantly more money because they're determined. So they're not, that's why it's called hidden potential. They could actually be on the tennis field, the tennis court, and be hidden and not be that great. But because of their character, they would keep at it. And by 4 years, 5 years later, they become a state champion.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they're ranked that day one as, yeah, this probably is not the sport for you, bro. Isn't that cool?
Well, and that's it's so interesting because it does fall into identity in that it's better to reward the determination and the attempt and the effort as opposed to telling the child you're so beautiful, you're so great, you're so everything, because then it starts to create not entitlement but a lack of needing to push because I'm already awesome. Like, so it's that balance of and which may take us to the from my perspective anyway, the necessity, the need for a spiritual connection to have a divine ownership of your greatness without denying the fact that we're also human needing to put forth an effort. That there's, I think, the pendulum has swung on some levels where our parents wanted us to have an easier life than they did, which the old saying, right? Tough times create strong men create easy times create weak men create tough times.
Got it.
So it's it's that internal balance, that dance where we can own our divine greatness while also knowing we need to build character,
100%.
which is crazy dance.
Well, I wanted to bridge because I know that we're going to talk another 3 or 4 hours. So I wanted to bridge into a little bit of business. If
Please.
so, I think that if you want to create abundance, you want to look to someone like an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs and just say, why were they off the charts? And they were off the charts because um, this wonderful man in a mastermind said, if you want to get 10 times better than you are, then let me ask you, how would you be 2 times better? And almost everyone says the same thing. I would do twice the calls. I would do twice the appointments. I do twice the networking events, right? But if you want to get 10 times better, there's no time for that. So that's what happened in the pandemic. When I lost everything, I had to build from nothing. And so you can actually get 10 times better because you have nothing. So you now say, I would never do that. That's too slow. And so you actually build this new mechanism, which is why I kind of skyrocketed after the pandemic was over because I built something that was way better engine, way better system, which goes to what I like to teach people. Most people that are not living in abundance, they don't realize that they've kind of trapped themselves into copying what doesn't work. And so whenever I start a business, I've had 6. I have an easy time creating success in these businesses because of some rules I have. And so one rule I have is I have to ask 3 questions and they all have to be yes, which is, would I hire it? Would I work for it? And would I own it? Would I be proud on all 3? Like, would I be proud to hire it, proud to work for it, and proud to own it? And if I can get 3 on that, then I know, let's take the next step. How would you go into a business where you have 3 unique selling propositions minimally? And if you don't have 3 unique selling propositions, I really discourage you from going into business in that industry. And if you look at Walter, you look what you're doing, you look about your drug and rehab thing, you had 3. There's no doubt about it, you could come up with a 3 because that's why people love to go to you. So when we were a DJ, we were the only ones that were full time. We were the only ones that had an office. We're the only ones that did a demo live in front of the client. And that's why we could charge twice as much, paid the bills, and bought the best equipment, all that stuff. So with the photography, we were the only ones that did as many events, high end, and turned the photos around the next day and showed people their photos so they knew to ask the question, where do I get it? Those are just simple things. So with publishing, we came up with that most publishers are glorified printers. And what they do is they make this gorgeous book, and it's undeniably a gorgeous book, but it's like a doctor saying, hey, Doug, here's your baby, good luck. And the reason I say that is because that's not the way a book is supposed to be. A book is supposed to be, here's your book, like here's your kid, let's grow it together. I'm the godfather. I am here with you to grow this kid. Because I got to tell you, Father's Day is around the corner. And Father's Day, it's easy to be a father. Just make a baby. But to be a dad, a father that's actually has a son that creates legacy and or a daughter, and they say, man, you poured everything into me. I got it. Now I got you. Like, they actually return the favor. And you don't do it for that reason. But my point is, you make them so strong that they're strong for you. And so with Perfect Publishing, we said, wow, no one is actually doing the 99%, which Malcolm Gladwell speaks of, the tipping point. So create a social proof campaign for that book for 2 years. If no one's doing that, I guarantee you your book's going to show up way more than anybody else's. And then make it an experience, have fun, go to the Jumbotron, go to the Library of Congress, go to all these things, and then create a tribe. Have them all support, review, mastermind, share, refer, network, market together, and teach them how to do it with a book. My point is, I want to get that into the show because that's the only reason I can be on the show, is because if you don't disrupt what you're doing and figure out different ways to do it better, then you're really choosing to have, I'll consider it a challenge with an average life instead of so
well, yeah, thank you for that. And to your point, that is exactly kind of what happened in the music industry. People would get on a record, get a record deal, and it's like getting published. And then now you think the record company or the publisher is going to help promote and help make that happen. And they don't really, they have a couple of resources, but they're not really
Exactly
going
right.
to be doing it.
I wrote
Yep.
that. You wrote when you said that earlier on. I said I got to bring that point back up because the record companies are just like publishers.
Yeah.
They're not serving as agents. They're serving as how can I take the money that you're going to bring to me by telling your network to go buy it and I keep it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I have both experiences being signed by a record company and having a published book by, a publisher. And they did virtually nothing. It's like I'm the one calling Barnes and Noble and saying, "Hey, can I do an in-store?" I'm the one, doing all that. They didn't do anything. So the fact that you're doing that for your books, for your authors, is tremendous, because that's so outside of the box, so different than what usually occurs when someone gets a publishing deal. They think that, oh, they're going to help me, and the truth is you're probably the only company that actually does.
If we can't figure out the ROI on it, we actually don't want to have the client be an author because we're going to tell them you're going to be in a negative that's so big. I don't want you telling people that we didn't do it right.
Mm,
Because if a publisher actually said, "Hey, this baby's going to cost you $20,000, and then when you grow it up, it's going to cost you another million," then you know that's what it's going to cost. But the publisher doesn't say you're going to pay me 25,000 and you're going to get about 500 back. They don't say that, and that's the truth if you don't have a marketing plan, and
right.
it's the truth if you don't have a reasonably high price ticket. I mean, a high price ticket could be as low as like $2,500. You're going to do fine. You make 10 sales with your book, but the idea of what you do with a book, and by the way, the difference of having a bad publisher or a bad self-publishing experience, which is almost the same, because most people are not marketers. Let's be clear. Okay, they're experts, but they're
Hmm.
not marketers. So if you don't have that, the sign is you don't do another book. I lost $20,000. Hey, Doug, I'd like to do a second book and lose another 20. It makes zero sense.
Right.
Our average author does several books. We have some authors that sign up for 10 books at a time. The reason why is they're profitable, and profitable is value. The secret of actually having a book get you business is give it away like candy, because if I can get you said it 3 times in the beginning of the show, the biggest commodity you have is time. If you can get an influencer to read your book, you should be paying them. You're lucky they're taking your book. So I give away 10,000 and as close to 100,000 books as I can digitally. And I
Hmm.
give about 1,000 physical books to people like yourself. Remember when I gave you a book? I
Hmm.
think, right? And because anyone who's the best person, or the person I want to connect with, I go, here's a piece of me. Like this is me. And if they spend 5 minutes on the book, which is all most people may have, but at least they look at it, they go, no one else gave me anything. Let me talk to this dude.
Right. Funny, I was actually talking to a good friend of mine last night. He's in the banking industry, and I suggested that. I said, "Look, dude," I said, I was, he's a good friend of mine, coaching him on also looking at shifting from being inside the bank to working as a strategic partner with clients of a bank. So, come from another angle. I said, you might want to write a book of your experiences, show your expertise from the inside and how that translates to the outside, and from the other perspective, show yourself as an expert there. And instead of sending your resume, you send them a book. And now, and they're not going to read it. They're not going to read the whole thing. They're going to look at it and go, "I don't have time to read this. Let me just hire you." Like, you obviously have enough information, enough experience, that you created a couple hundred pages of information. I don't have time to do this, but the fact that you did it and no one else did, you're my guy or gal, whoever.
Or gal. That's right. Do that. Do
Yep,
that.
do that, dude. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more with the power of having that information from inside out. And yeah, with the acknowledgement that odds are most people don't read those books. What is the stat? It's like 90% of people don't even read past the 10 pages.
Yeah, if you want a book that's going to get read, you have to write under 100 pages. I mean, that's rule number one. At 96 and below, you have a chance of it selling like 10 times more and being read 10 times more, because
Hmm.
people look at a book that thick and they say, "Oh, I can do that in a half hour. I could do that in 45 minutes to an hour, or I can do it on a plane." Like if they can feel like they can do it in a plane. And if the book's good, they'll finish it. If the book's not good, they're not going to read it anyway. So I did want to say one more thing about that mind set, I guess, the way people look at a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I have several things about a book because it's very important to me for three reasons. One is I've lost my mom to Alzheimer's. I've lost my grandmother. She was a Mensa. I mean, just really super intelligent people. And I don't know their story. I mean, my mom, as great as she is, I don't know if you said, "Hey, Ken, got some good news for you. We're going to put $100,000 in your bank. I just need you on a show for an hour to talk about your mom, who she was, not what she was to you, who she was." I go, "Shoot, I can do 5 minutes." He'd be like, "Then we don't have a deal." Right. So this new book, Conversations, and also getting someone to write their book, you get to write their inspiring story, and people buy inspiration, as you know. Inspiration can be fraudulent or it can be genuine. Those are the two choices. Fraudulent means that if you Google them, you wouldn't see anything. You could vet them quickly that no one's saying anything good about them. So do not do business with them. But if they're inspiring and you Google them and people are giving 5s out of 5s or 10s out of 10s or just saying this is the best decision I ever made, whatever they charge, pay it because it's safe money. So that's one of the reasons for a book. The second thing about a book is you're actually causing yourself to elevate. When you say, "I am going to be the expert," you're not as big as you will be when you finish that book, because you have to study, you have to hold yourself accountable, and the imposter syndrome at some level sets in. Like, am I the one that should write this book on sales? Well, if you are, you better be really bringing it with some new information. And so I have just looked at a book as a business card. And when you give that business card with value, all of a sudden your sale, you don't have to drop your prices. You have people kind of really saying, "I want to work with the person that wrote the book on sales or wrote the book on podcasting or wrote the book on networking." That was my first book. I wrote this book called Becoming the Perfect Networker. That's 57 books ago. And
Wow.
so the other thing about it is, if you don't do a book, you leave this earth without one. You leave no legacy. You don't have anyone that loves you that can actually get that $100,000 to talk about you on stage. And it's sad because the people we know the best, we know we love them, but we don't know them. And so the biggest message I have in this podcast with you is, I want to get to know you better. And this conversation helps us get to know each other better. I have so much more respect and desire to refer you to tell people, man, Doug doesn't just do a podcast. He brings relationship into the podcast. He brings value. He goes so deep. There's no, "Hey, we got to wrap up pretty soon." And you caused me, Doug, I told you this last week, caused me to shift. I left my company I've been with for 6 years because of you, indirectly and then directly. So indirectly, you got my subconscious working. Directly, I thought, Doug's got it. Don't talk to someone for a finite period of time. Talk to them as long as there's a conversation. And Scott Stratham wrote a book called Unmarketing. And he gets paid like $25,000, $30,000 an hour to talk. And I remember he wears a white t-shirt, and on his arm, exposed arm, he has a tattoo, and it says, "My life is my message, Gandhi." And when I read that, I go, I'll listen to a dude like this, because if he can put that there, that means he cares about his life. He cares about his message. So someone raised their hand. They said, "Hey, you're the ultimate blogger. I mean, when you blog, 100,000 people like your blog. How often should you blog?" And his answer was, if he was a monk, he says, "As often as you have something to say." I loved it, because I was like, you cannot dispute that. And then someone else asked, "Well, how long should a blog be?" And these can be substituted from blog to podcast or blog to book. And he says, the blog should be as long as you have something to say.
Yeah.
And I just loved it, because he says, "I've had short blogs that were just so riveting, they got 100,000, but I've had ones that went pages and I couldn't stop until I stopped, and they got 100,000 too." It's just, how valuable is the content you're putting down? And that content, this content is just like, it's a descriptor of words. How is your message actually resonating to change people's lives?
And are you, by willing to go deep, you're able to have those magical moments, those magic, that aha, like, oh, that sparked a thought that makes me think of so and so,
Right.
or such and such, or this experience, this story, this anecdote. And sadly, when you have okay, we have 30 minutes, I have my canned talk, because it's ultimately what it becomes. Is it's the same talk. They go on one podcast, and they have the same conversation that they have on the other, and they have on the other, and even if the host has other questions, oftentimes it gets steered back because, I got to get my message across because I got 30 minutes and I've got this canned script that I get it out there. And it's so valuable to have. It's what I always tell like people in I love group coaching because people will have one person has a question that another person didn't even know they had.
Right.
And they ask the question like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that.
True.
Or they'll say, I wanted to ask that question, but I was afraid to raise my hand, or I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to, do that. And I'm like Walter. I sit up front and I'm asking all sorts of questions, and I get all because I don't care. I have no shame. Like I know I don't know anything. And I also know that what I do know could be out of date, erroneous, could be not contextually accurate for the situation, and I'm willing to go, well, in this situation, this is what I perceive. How is it different in this situation? And that little difference could make all the difference.
Indeed. Can I give a plug for the new podcasting company?
Please, absolutely.
So his name is Michael Fritzius. He goes by Fritz, and he is a gentle, Stephen Wright wacko, super smart, cool dude. And I asked him the questions that I would ask someone like you for my new decision of who I'm going to go with. I said, Fritz, he owns Podcastify Me, podcastifyme.com. And I said, Fritz, when do I have to do my show? He goes, whenever you want. I said, whenever I want. What do you mean, whenever I want? He says, you're going to send the show in. We're going to produce it. We're going to polish it, and we're going to release it. How long for the shows? He goes, how long do you want them to be? I said, they're going to be different. He goes, cool, like that. Smart. I said, how come there's no rules? He says, because I have a team that's ready to get the shows, make them, and release them to all the places you want them to go. And so it's so weird that had you not said, and we didn't have the reschedule, that caused me to start thinking, why am I confining myself? That was 6 years, by the way. And guess what happens when you have a 1 hour show? There's a couple things that happen. On Mondays, you have to find people that can do them. Number two, you have to find where their influence is. If their influence is so high, you have to only have one guest. If their influence is way too low, you have to have two guests. And if it's for an event and they have lots of speakers, you might have to have three. And so it's really always diabolically like a balancing game.
Mm-hmm.
With you get to have fun. And that's the rule. You get to have fun. When the fun is coming to a point when you say, that was a lot of fun, and you're saying that was encapsulated a lot of fun, the show is probably about done.
Okay. So what are you saying?
Well, what I'm saying is,
no, I was already saying, you're gonna say, oh, this has been a lot of fun.
well, I will tell you that I've had so much fun at any point of this that it could be a natural wrap, and it was a pleasure talking with you, and it awakened me that I made a good decision to go with Fritz. So,
and so yeah, plug away. What's the show when
it starts July 1st? It starts July. We think it's the 1st. It's going to be. We're moving it. It was called Amplified with Ken Rochon. We're changing it for the Dr. Smiley brand. So it's the Dr. Smiley Show, or not the Dr. Smiley Show, Amplifying Hope. And so it's because the other one was Amplified, and it was Amplified Life of leaders that inspire hope and create community, which was I loved that theme, and it did last a long time. But after the pandemic, it really became, for me, Dr. Smiley is my name. And it's my name because it's my game. It's not only my game, it's my identity, and it's what I'm proud to be. So, and by the way, I'm a human. I'm not telling the world I'm always happy. I'm telling you that I want to achieve it, and I want to give it, and I want to create it, and I want to co-create it. And that part I can stand behind. Easy.
Love it. And the idea, it's going to be long format, similar to
flexible format, but I will say it's long format is what I'm leaning to. Yes, it's I'm calling it 45 to 90.
Okay, great.
If people they don't have the time, or they don't have the content, or whatever, it's cool.
And at the end of the day, you cut it up anyway, and the people who are the shorts watchers and all of that, they do that. And then if they want more, I mean, even Joe Rogan and some of the other long format guys, you could still find a 15-minute, 20-minute clip. So it's I think at this point, I agree with, do what serves. And if it serves in 45 minutes, 20 minutes, then great. If it's 2 hours, great. There's no right or wrong.
Well, I have a Gandhi quote that I was looking for the right place to put it, and I feel like it's now. So not only do I love that quote, "My life is my message," but his newest quote that I read maybe a year ago, I just can't stop thinking about it almost every day, if not more, multiple times a day. And it's, happiness is when what you think and what you say and what you do are in harmony.
Mm,
And that's what your podcast should be. That's
yep.
what your should be. That's what your career should be. Like, and I don't say should be from a pressure standpoint. It's that it should be because it could be.
Right. Oh yeah. I remember when I'd be doing music, I'd be like, man, I can't believe people are paying me to do this. Like I just for nothing when I'm speaking, like what I'm doing right now. Like, if to do it with joy and not be like, like it's a difference between getting to and having to.
Yes.
And we can make that shift even when it's something that we have to do. When
Right.
we could still shift the meaning of it. No, I get to do this. Like, you know, I'll leave with this thought. I remember, I think Tony Robbins shared this story that he got from Jim Rohn, probably, that said something along the lines of, you know, people think they don't want to have problems. And then I think Jim said, well, the only people who don't have problems are people in cemeteries. Right. So what kind of quality problem do we want to have? And if we don't have problems, get on your knees and start praying for them. And what a blessing, man. If we could look at problems or opportunities or challenges as
Mm-hmm.
gifts to grow, gifts to, I call them AFCOs, another freaking growth opportunity where we go, okay, cool. Like bring it on. Iron forges iron, iron sharpens iron. Like we can't, if life becomes too simple, right? What's the old saying? It was Les Brown, do what's easy. Or if you do what's hard, life will be easy. And if you're only willing to do what's easy, life will be hard.
Right. Yes. And his other saying quote, because I have a little quote book, he says, "Too many of us are not living our dreams because we're living our fears."
Yep. Wow.
We done did
Good
good,
stuff.
Doug.
Yeah,
We
you
done,
done
we
did
done
good.
did.
So, how can people get in touch with you? They want to learn more about Dr. Smiley. Where's the best place to get all of that info and connect with you?
I'm digging IG now. I got to tell you, it's a new awakening how people are communicating with that almost more than a phone number. So at Book Dr. Smiley, and I always give my phone number, and I guess I do because I have yet to get a call from someone who wants to take my time or use my time and doesn't have something I can't provide or give that makes a difference
Hmm.
for me. So it's 202-701-0911.
All right. We'll put that in the description. So, say it one more time.
202-701-0911.
And your Instagram.
Book Dr. Smiley. At Book
Hey,
Dr.
right.
Easy, easy.
Love it when a plan comes together. So, with that being said, I love you for who you are and who you aren't. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. It's been an absolute joy, pleasure, and privilege. And I look forward to rocking all sorts of opportunities with you. And it's an absolute joy to be in your presence, brother.
Likewise, I look forward to providing as much value as I possibly can and the best gift I can give, which is I would like to have your book amplified because you are the real deal. So thank you.
Amen, brother. Let's make it happen. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.